Welcome to a very special episode of Founded on Purpose, where we are live at the Better Spots UnCorporate Holiday Party. It's all party, no office, for founders, freelancers, and anybody else who does not get the joy of a celebration but has a lot worth celebrating. And I am with the one and only wiseacre, Mr. Paul Armstrong, straight down from Cincinnati, Ohio, and off of the TikTok. Paul, thanks for being here.
Sure. I have no choice. No, it's not true. I came down willingly.
So you've heard me ask these questions of lots of people, and as a GP at Renew VC, somebody I work closely with.
A general person, yes.
A general person.
Yes.
I get to ask you the question. In one word, what's your purpose?
In one word?
Yes.
You want my answer to be one word?
Exactly.
It's not fair.
I know. It's my show. I make the rules.
That's really, you mean my purpose in life? My purpose with Renew?
Yes.
Dang it.
I know.
You're supposed to help me on that.
That's the beauty of a well-designed question, right?
Yeah.
It elicits a good answer. And I feel like you're going to give us one.
It's percolating.
I'm going to let you think on that, but I'm going to ask you another question.
Yeah.
Because I like to multitask because my brain
I might find the word by talking.
I know. So, Paul, I would love to hear what community means to you, especially at this phase of your life and career. And knowing that you founded a company, you participated in the first Disney's Techstars Accelerator. You have worked at one of the biggest startups in the state that you live in. What does community look like to you now, and why does it matter?
Community changed drastically in 2020 for everyone. I would have a different answer before then than I do now. So community for me now is small and meaningful, but difficult to find.
What makes it meaningful? Like, how do you know when it's meaningful? And then what are maybe some tells that you're like, oh no, vibes are off?
Well, vibes off are when it feels like you're trying to do small talk. And the first thing after the small talk is the exchange of what can I do for you and what can you do for me, which is not community to me at all. I'm not looking to extract anyone's worth in a community. I'm looking to provide comfort, looking to provide insight if there is any for me to provide or to gain insight. It should be a free exchange of trust.
Trust is such a word that is very rarely spoken of in like the innovation in the startup world until it's broken.
Correct. Because it's an undefinable word. Because trust means something different to everybody.
I think that there's this binary thinking that gets applied to community, to purpose, to impact, right? And to innovation.
Correct. Formula, rules,
pattern matching.
Yes.
The things we're trying
because to it's very comfortable for people to be like, oh, this is what this is now. The problem is that will never last because it can't last.
How do you balance that, though, knowing that there are certain best practices, there are certain factors or signals? So how do you balance looking for signals that something is the right formula for that at that point in time, while also not holding to patterns that don't necessarily serve and are not universally true? Like, it sounds like a delicate dance.
It is a delicate dance. And part of it would be always testing the boundaries of that. Like when I've been a boss, I've always tried to do that in a way without anyone knowing that's what I'm doing, which for me is always through play, always through fun, always through whatever it is that we're doing to not do that, to do something completely different, because then you'll know people. You've taken them out of the mask because everyone's wearing a mask of some sort about who they are or how they fit in. And if you try to get that away from them, then you'll figure out how the community can function, because then they function better together. Because you're taking away all possibility of it being extractionary in any way, shape, or form. Because you're doing something silly or, meditative or whatever it might be.
You're creating a container for creativity and safety at the same time.
And learning. Safe learning and its progress. Like I've told you the EBTH story where in order for us to learn the product, I made it a challenge for our team to find the cheapest paintings on the site so that we could make a gallery of bad art. Like it had to be under $20. But that was so that we would learn how the auction process works. It was so we learn how the shipping Like, because people always complain about the shipping is confusing, it's so expensive, so that we would figure it out. So we would learn how it is. But it wasn't about that. It was about us always, look at what I found. Look at this thing. Like, it would always be about searching for the craziest things, which eventually became clown paintings. It just turned into, let's find the weirdest clown painting.
That's the natural arc. I mean, the bend to the universe.
So in that fun, we solved things because we took ourselves out of being inside of it to be outside of it.
Yeah.
So we learned solutions about, we need to communicate better about shipping costs. We need to do better pickup process, because the process before was people would be printing out their receipts and going to a warehouse, and it would take 30 minutes for them to get one item because the person would have to go find stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know where it was in a huge warehouse.
I was tired just thinking about that.
So we're like, well, we need to bin things. We need to have numbers on aisles. We need to have numbers on stuff like in IKEA, like IKEA would have.
It sounds like.
So we just came up with solutions because we had fun participating in an activity. But then when we were met with a challenge in that fun, we're like, well, what would you do? And then people just started thinking of things.
Which I think is a natural entrepreneurial tendency. It's a natural creative tendency. It's a problem solving tendency. And it sounds like that's a really effective way to get people to break out of the that's not my job mentality.
Yes.
Or that's not how this works.
Yes.
Because it's not about how it works now. It's about how it could work better. That's progress.
And it's never about how it works. It's like who it helps. That's always for me what it is. I'm like, I don't care how it works. I'm going to know who it helps, because you're for someone. You're doing this for someone. How is it helping them? I don't care about what tech you've built. I don't care about what solutions, whatever cool thing they're using. Is it helping?
So then how do you help, or not necessarily just you on your own?
Maybe help is.
But did we find your purpose?
Yeah, help.
I love that. So then how does you moving from...
Gosh, that turns right back to Mr. Rogers. No, but you always just look for the helper.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to be that to people.
A lot of people would then wonder if the purpose is to help, though. Right, but if your purpose is to help, and you went from being a founder of a parenting and child-focused app...
to help.
Right? I think a lot of people would think, sir, you moved to venture capital. How are you helping? I'm
helping people who neither have the community, the connections, nor the insider know-how to find money to make their dreams happen. And we are specifically talking with people who want to have a purpose. It's not just, I want to make cigarettes. That's the dumbest thing.
I really hope that I don't feel like there are a lot of budding tobacco,
organically grown mushroom cigarettes. No, I'm just kidding.
Mushroom everything.
But they're not looking to harm, nor do we want them to be looking to just exploit.
Yeah.
I see VC as a help in a society that isn't providing that help. Sadly.
Sad, but doesn't mean it's not
true. That's why we have a purpose for it. It isn't merely we have a lot of money because we're rich people who are just feeling we'll give you some pocket change.
Right.
The goal is there are needs. There are people who have the ability to meet those needs.
Yeah.
We will do what we can to help usher that through our helping you.
I love it.
Solutions.
I mean, I'm obviously on board. I'm on the team.
That's why we're together.
I feel like having these conversations, even though you and I talk daily, we work together, but having these conversations is so important, and part of the reason we wanted to do the podcast like this, not necessarily the live version. This was a fun experiment.
Right, but
as a concept for the podcast.
Nothing's an experiment. Nothing's an experiment.
Nothing?
Everything is live.
But doesn't that also mean everything is an experiment? Because it's never been done before?
If you want to think of it that way. If you want to think of it that way.
Okay, we should get some wine and come back to this.
So Paul and I stepped away from the mics for just a second before I ran into somebody that I had to get to sit down just for a few minutes in the middle of their hosting duties to ask some juicy questions.
Everyone, we are joined with Madilynn Beck, the founder and CEO of The Better Spot and the host of tonight's UnCorporate Holiday Party. Thank you for having us.
This was
never in the plans for us to do a podcast pop-up until you and I were just I don't know, what if? I'm so glad that you took a moment to sit down. One, because being the hostess with the mostest is a big job. It's a tiring job, and you do it so seemingly effortlessly. And I've been so excited to ask you some of these questions. No, there's no wrong answers. And like all the best questions, these are your answers today.
Yeah.
Tomorrow might be different.
Yeah.
And that's
15 minutes. I'm a Gemini. You never know what's going to fucking happen. I can just...
5 minutes.
Yep.
So I'll check with you in 5.
Yep.
In one word, what would you say your purpose is?
Ooh, in one word, what is my purpose? Goodness gracious. I would say interconnectivity.
I love that answer for many reasons. One of it is the fact that connects with so many other purposes, which I love as a strategic move, but also it's so true and authentic to you. What do you mean by interconnectivity?
So as you asked the question, the way that I generally process is like, I'll go through a bunch of different things in my head. I'll re-ask the question. I'll ask the question in the way that I would have answered the question, whatever. Essentially, like when I think about interconnectivity, it is internal dialogue, how internal dialogue drives everything, but ironically, how the outside environment, right, our natural environment versus the nurture environment, the environment that's been trained and proposed upon us, really dictates that internal voice. So how much of it is us versus how much of it has been informed into us. So I had a bunch of different words that I wanted to answer, and none of them were really true. But then I kept kind of drawing these strings back to it, and I felt like the only word that was the most appropriate was interconnectivity. So that's what that means for me.
I think that's the beauty of a purpose, right? Is this idea that it is a distinct thing you can articulate in 1 or 2 words, right? But being intentional about finding the right word, right? It's a challenge of language, but it's also it's an invitation to reflect, and it's to say what is something that connects those other threads, because no one person is one purpose or is one thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Also, y'all just got like some great advice on how to think through things, or just another perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because we all process differently and we all think differently. As we move into a new year, you're an entrepreneur, you're a founder, you're a community builder, you are a wellness leader, a parent, a friend. Like you have all of these different roles that you sit in well.
Yeah.
What part of your purpose are you carrying into the new year?
Woo, interesting. So
Focusing on.
I've been very intentional about kind of my clinical background and my professional background, and then how it creates kind of like a Venn diagram over my personal position and where I exist. And I was outside just talking about this, and I was kind of having a little conversation with some folks, and I was like, yeah, have you all thought about your word for 2025? Everyone's like, what do you mean? I do vision boards and I do da-da-da-da. And I was like, I used to do vision boards all the time in college, and Cosmo comes at, all the different things. But then I realized that was just an additional segmentation. And I was like, what would it be like for me to distill and come up with and then there was I'm blanking on the author, but there was a woman who wrote a book. Mm-hmm. And it's a whole process on how to identify your word. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you that later if you want to link it or whatever. But basically, long story short, I came up with a word for last year, and that word was thrive. And the universe did a really funny thing, because it gave me a lot of productivity. It gave me a lot of things, a lot of growth, but it wasn't growth in the direction that I wanted. And so I recognized that the intentionality behind that word wasn't where I needed it to be. So I started my process for my word going into 2025 2 weeks ago. And to answer your question, to go full circle, what I'm taking into 2025 is to be easeful.
Which is very different than easy.
Exactly.
And I think that's a thing that is in this industry of innovation, of startups, all of that. Ease has been treated like a negative. Mm-hmm. Like things are only worthy if they're incredibly hard.
Yeah, if you're struggling. 100%.
Ridiculous sacrifice. But that doesn't always have to be the case.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here for ease. I would like I would like some please.
I mean, listen, I'm cooking it up.
Hey, I'm taking recipe tips because I'm gonna turn on the stove because I've got to cook up my work for the new year. I am not ahead of schedule. I will be December 30th.
And if it's it could be January 20th. It doesn't. Each room may transition. You know what I mean? Like for me, I may move into it, and I may be like, this isn't really resonating the way that I thought it would, and I can, so.
And that's the beauty of that process, right? Of that inner reflection, that inner awareness, and then also being able to recognize what are external circumstances or opinions, factors, and wayfind.
Yeah.
What's true to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
I want that for everybody here. I hope everybody here finds their right word, moves through the next year, and
figures it out. Yeah. I also feel like when you talked about wayfinding, the super interesting thing is I don't know why, but I went back to, we used to print out maps to get places.
I was just talking to my husband. I was like, remember
we used to MapQuest and print that shit out, and we would have it on the seat next to us and be like, wait, no. I feel like that for me is easeful because I see so many opportunities. There's so much more versus just this is the path of least resistance. This is eco-friendly. There's a construction. The printouts didn't tell you if there was a speed trap or an accident, or you had to figure this shit out. And the interesting thing about that is, although that may seem like it's more work, to me, that's so much more easeful because it's organic, it's discovery, it's something that doesn't put me in a position of just having blinders and having this driving force that's not an internal engine.
There's agency.
Exactly. Yeah.
I kind of want to MapQuest things again. I don't know if MapQuest is. Thank you, MapQuest, for all your years of service.
Thank you, MapQuest.
Sorry we did you dirty with Waze.
All right, back to Paul and his purpose.
We did come to a really cool moment where you realized that your purpose is to help.
Yeah.
So how long has it been to help? Were you a helper as a kid?
Probably. I got along with everyone as best I could. That's probably more a coping mechanism than
That's really interesting because getting along with people doesn't necessarily mean helping.
No.
And vice versa.
I know. I always been willing to help people. If like, hey, can you help me with this? Yeah, sure.
How do you feel?
Which is specific. Like that's specific help. But as an adult, the help is I don't know what I don't know. So I want to be available in case I can be use would be a add-on to help. Everyone wants to feel of use, right?
I think so. How do you balance that though? Because
not be used?
Yes. People who give help tend to
hard lessons. You have to learn hard lessons. I've gotten used many times.
How do you get help?
How do I deal with it?
No, how do you receive help as somebody who is called to give it?
It feels like a battle. What there was a show. What was it? Oh, I think it was The Office with Dwight and Andy, where they were trying to one on helping each other. No, I'll get that. No, let me get that. No, let me do that. But I don't want to. I'm not trying to be performative.
Right.
But accepting help is hard.
Do you find accepting
unless I know the person really well?
Why do you think that is, that you are such a person who is naturally inclined and motivated to help? Why do you think it is that you have a hard time receiving it without going into therapy?
Because I know how it's used. My career is to help. A designer is a conduit. I am not supposed to be present. I am supposed to be a representative.
Of what?
Whomever I'm working for. And whoever I'm delivering to.
And those are different.
Yes. So I am a conduit between those two things, which is to be nothing but of help. I have to translate what they want to say to the people and how they will receive it. Those are at odds often, which is just to be a help, to listen, to hear, to translate, to deliver. That's my training.
But that sounds, like you said, those are often at odds, right? The person who you're the conduit for and the person that they're speaking to or communicating to or serving. How do you feel helpful when you're living in that tension?
When I am able to communicate to both parties in a way that they understand that they need each other.
That feels also like a bit of a parallel to things in the startup and innovation world, where the stakeholders that often feel at odds are investors and founders.
Yeah.
What parallels do you think exist between that kind of like that metaphor, right? Like as a designer, by training, right? You've been trained, you've done this for decades.
Yeah.
How does that translate now to your role where you sit in that tension, but in a different way?
Well, I don't have to execute, which is nice.
Fair.
So I can merely listen and then pick out like, oh, did you just hear the words that you just said? That's the same thing that they just said. Like, it's basically trying to connect the dots because people talk over each other all the time. They don't talk to each other, they talk over each other. Basically, what you're trying to do is bring them down to the same frequency. It's just trying to find that frequency.
Sounds like design thinking, design strategy. Because I think a lot of people think design and they think pretty graphic, pretty output, pretty logo. Yes, those are some deliverables, but design is a process. It is a discipline. It is a craft. It is architecture.
Yeah.
It's psychology.
Yeah. Therapy. Yeah. All that.
It sounds like the
Teaching,
core piece of your job is communicating, both in listening and delivering messages.
I always tell people that I feel like I'm in the business of human behavior, which I have to understand how people work. So if I understand how people work, how they think, how they operate, how they decide, how they choose, then I can make something for it. Again, frequency. I have to understand where they are resonating. Otherwise, they won't be heard.
So then, as you're always modulating these different frequencies and living kind of a little bit in dissonance, it sounds.
A little bit, yeah.
Or a lot bit, whatever.
You basically aren't, you're doing your best not to be present. I don't mean that, but I mean, I don't want my fingerprints all over because it's not about me. Until I use everything that has been input to then deliver not what they want, because that doesn't always translate, but what is actually needed. That's the help.
As you think about the next year, right?
Yeah.
Of you as a helper, specifically as somebody who is a designer, who is a frequency calibrator, who is a communicator. In your role, knowing that like you're a general partner at Renew VC, on all the things we touch, venture studio, the fund, purpose round, like all of it, what part of that purpose to help are you intentionally bringing with you into the new year?
I don't know that I don't know that I think like that. I'm not thinking about the next year because it hasn't happened yet. I mean, I assume I'll be the same.
What about tomorrow?
Tomorrow will try to be better than I was today. More alert, more listening, more learning. That's it. And then the next day, the same thing. I will fail.
We're human. That's what we do.
Correct.
But the important thing is that we try again and learn.
And through all of that, I have to take care of myself because in that role of being that conduit, it's draining. And if I don't sometimes take a break, I can get testy or I can get biased or I can get closed off. Yeah, it happens to everyone. Or take it too personal. Like it's not about me, but then I make it feel like it's about me, but it isn't about me. So I have to unload that, separate from it a little bit. Because that's the hard part about design. Art is all about you. It's all about your communicating you to everyone else. Design's the exact opposite. It's everyone else that you have to communicate for. So, but you have to use you to imprint that. So it's really difficult.
I feel like that was just like a design masterclass in that last sentence alone. Thank you. This was really fun. Thanks for coming on the show.
Sure.
Because I didn't even ask you. I just said, come sit and talk with me.
I just showed up.
And that's the magic.
And that wasn't the only magic that we captured at the event. There were so many conversations with incredible founders, entrepreneurs, freelancers, and real change makers. Too many to fit in one episode. But here's a quick supercut of some of the purposes and thoughts that folks were having as we head into a new year. Shout out to Kaylin, Kristen, Raiko, Whitney, Tanisha, and Nicole. Here's what they had to say.
In one word, what would you say your purpose is?
I would say to help.
Ooh, tell me more. What does that mean to you?
Because I feel like selfishness is becoming more, or self-centeredness is becoming more of a thing in this day and age. And you have a lot of people with dreams. You have a lot of people with different ambitions. And I feel like we don't have people that are able to come out and help people with their dreams.
In one word, what's your purpose?
Oh, it's not really a word, it's a phrase, but pay it back.
Pay it back. Okay, what does pay it back mean to you?
So if I've made mistakes in my life, I want to turn around and tell everyone about it so that they don't make the same mistake. So if I can pave the way and go through all the uncomfortable failures for other people and be able to educate others on what happened to me so that it avoids it happening to them, that's my purpose.
It takes everyone to participate in order to make things happen. So to watch people who are actually involved in making moves and believe in something, that's just one of those things for me. I'm kind of a dreamer. So anytime I see someone who has a dream, I'm like, let me support you. Let me help you in some kind of way.
We're here for dreamers. We're here for ideas. We're here for enigmatic folks.
Yes.
For people who are
Outside
driven.
the box. Because it's those dreamers and visionaries who really make us move forward and challenge the status quo. So, I love to see it.
With that in mind, then, I'm curious, what would you say your purpose is then? What are you a dreamer of
Well,
or driven towards?
I've realized that, I thought my dream was to build something on my own. I think my dream has evolved into helping other people realize their dream.
I think my purpose is to motivate.
Okay, you have to say more.
Oh, I got to say more?
I would love you to. That was great. But now I'm like, tell me more.
So I naturally have an ability to feed into people positively, or feed it. I could do negatively. I just choose to be positive, and I'm kind of a natural leader. And so for me, I motivate by putting out energy, whether through social media or my interactions with my friends or people I just meet, positivity, because I put out what I need, So instead of looking for it, I just become it. And so then that energy becomes reciprocity. They feed it back, and then I get what I need. So I think that's my purpose, to motivate.
Like, you show up authentically as a founder. And I'm wondering, in one or two words, what would you say your purpose is?
Overcome fear.
Why do you think it is that people don't like the word fear?
I think our culture, the way that we have created it, like society at large, it shames people, it guilts people, it bullies people for being afraid, when that's the most natural and human thing that we all have in common, is that we get afraid. So I think because of the culture of punishment that we created, people are uncomfortable saying that word because we all want to prove that we're okay. We all want to fit in and not be put out. You know what I mean? And so this is how you do it. You say, I'm stagnant. I'm stuck. I'm procrastinating. It's here.
I'm curious.
Yes.
Based on where you're at now, and even back then when you decided to do this very incredibly hard thing.
Yeah.
What was your purpose if you had to choose one word?
My purpose is, one word. Oh, gosh.
I know. This is the challenge.
I gotta
You
think
will
on
get to it. If you got to talk your way to it.
I think my purpose is legacy.
Okay, that is one that has never been said before, and I love it so hard.
Amazing.
What do you mean by legacy?
Well, our memories are tied up into our personal digital footprint, our photos and videos, right? And we take so many that they're getting lost among digital clutter and in our clouds because we have no time to sort through them, to find the intention and the meaning behind why we took them in the first place. And it's just so easy to take a photo. And it has created a lot
of clutter, a big old mess, so to speak, right? And I believe really the only way to, pass down this digital footprint, pass down your digital legacy is that it needs to be curated with intention so that you can find the meaning in your memories.
Thinking about the purpose behind May, what do you hope that purpose is going to lead you to a legacy of for you as a person that is absolutely a fundamental, foundational part of May, but is also a person outside of your company?
I think, well, for me, I have 2 children. So I want to leave them something that is, meaningful and big, and
are we talking
show them
some wealth?
Yeah.
Great. So we are not ashamed.
Yes.
We want historically excluded founders. Let's get that money.
But also show them what it takes to build a business that, that resiliency and grit and, just showing up and doing them.
Stories, they're at the heart of Founded on Purpose and why we decided to build this podcast around this idea of real human conversations, getting to know the people at the intersection of business and impact, purpose and profit. And wow, am I so glad that we took the time to do an experiment, be in community, and tap into the collective purpose of all of us. Here's to the next one.